All right, what's up, guys? We got our next episode of Wandavision recap here, talking about episode 7 entitled Breaking the Fourth Wall. And I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I'm still really pissed that Disney doesn't put the titles in the description until, like, after we finish the episode. I feel like that's really misleading. On top of a couple of different things that apparently I wasn't aware of. Like, did you guys know that apparently people were complaining about the end credit sequence and how freaking long that shit is? And, like, that was something that I kind of brought up, and it's becoming that thing where we bring it up on this show, and then all of a sudden people on Twitter start complaining about it. It's kind of strange how that worked, but yeah,
crazy the amount of power our show has over the Twitter, film Twitter.
Yeah, right. It's
very
almost
humble.
like it's almost like we can kind of call shit before it happens, which either makes us gods or film Twitter really freaking predictable. Crazy, right? But yeah, we got another show for you guys. We have 3 guests. This is like the biggest panel that we've had so far on a non-finale episode. 2 surprise guests because, as it turns out, Chris semi-lied to me about the guest that we were having on. Although I will say it was unintentional. We've got Matt back from Basic Entertainment, and of these 2 right here, if you're wondering why they look so similar, yes, indeed, they are brothers. Even though you wouldn't be able to tell by the
wrong way.
Get the elephant in the room right out of the way.
Trust me, it's all. I'm still trying to figure out camera angles.
You know what? Everyone was probably sitting there like, God, I mean, I'm really stoked. Like Dom and Chris are like, they're always on time. Like, I'm really looking forward to another WandaVision episode 7. But like, God damn, these 2 guys look alike. Are they going to address that? And Dom being the great host he is,
the one thing,
2 minutes in, they all noticed.
The one thing that I have to say before we get started, because I know that this is going to be another episode that goes off the rails, is that these 2 guys who you see sitting here are, of course, the Chiarulli Brothers, Chris and Joe. What's going on? Happy to have you guys back. And, well, one of you back, because one of you has been on the show. One of you will be making their first time debut on the show. And if there's one thing that I have learned, it's that whenever Chris has his personal friends from his real life on the show, shit goes nuts. Shit goes nuts and off the rails. So I just need to warn you, audience members, who came in expecting a regular, normal episode of Talkin TV, to understand what it will be that you guys are getting yourselves in for now. So now that we've got that out of the way,
throwing him in.
Before we've got that out of the way, Matt, I feel so bad that you kind of like have to be like the 5th wheel of this weird party. Now you're going to understand how I felt when I first was hanging out with Chris and his friends. Dude, happy to have you back. How have you been?
It's been great. Sad that we got to talk about WandaVision. This episode was a letdown, not or less, to talk about. But yeah, man, it's gonna be great. Of course, you got the twins here, and that should be kind of like a good balance of you guys look like twins. So
like twins?
Yeah,
they're not twins. That's the best part. They're not twins.
I honestly, I'm gonna call them that.
I mean, it depends on your standard of twins.
Yeah,
that was perfect.
Now he's gonna call us that forever.
Oh, that worked out so much better than I could have possibly thought. Matt, thank you for that. I love that.
Yeah, Matt. Real quick, let the folks know about your channel and where they can find you real quick
while
before we jump into things.
Of course, you guys can, of course, find me on Basic Entertainment. I would do movie reviews, reactions, discussions. I also have a live spoiler talk of WandaVision every Mondays. You guys can go check out. And yeah, that's basically where you guys can find me on my YouTube page. And that's pretty much it.
Sweet. Let's jump to the twins. We'll start with NY Average Joe, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And since you guys are, new to our WandaVision weekly series, just let us know a little bit about how you've been liking the show so far, where your head's at with all of it.
Yeah, so you can find me, NY Average Joe, on Twitter and Instagram. Not a big, YouTuber or anything like that. Just like Chris said, good friend of his, playing D&D in the past and being nerds. So we got 2 nerds on the cast, me and my twin over there. We're both really big into being nerds and doing nerdy things. Like, we're big gamers. We're big into the Marvel universe, big into the DC universe. You could probably know that already if you listen to that podcast I was on with Chris and Dom here. But yeah, I'm just really excited to be here and talk about WandaVision. I've very much enjoyed it up until this point. It's been a really, really refreshing take on what Marvel has done. It's been all movies. So to get a TV show and kind of have a new take on the universe, I think it's really, really cool, really, really interesting the way they took it. And I love the concept of the show and how they're actually going through with it, and how this episode was definitely, the Modern Family Office version of the show, which me and Chris were laughing at when we were watching it together. So I'm really liking it so far and happy to be here. Thanks for having me again. And
so
what about you, Chris?
Wait. Hold on real quick. I got to jump. You're telling me that when, the people who make the movies actually give a shit about the shows that they claim are tied together but really aren't, the shows actually turn out to be good? Crazy. absolutely
Good might be a
Television,
matter of
nuts.
good might be a matter of perspective in regards to this episode.
Yeah,
but
we'll get to that.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Someone's got to enjoy it. Anyways, I really enjoy this next guest's music. You can find him right under the handle that he has presented right there, Chiarulli. He only has one song out right now, but
one and a half.
honestly,
Yeah.
1.5, yeah, but the acoustic version. But honestly, man, we need more. I love it. I want people to know where it is. So tell them about yourself, where they can find it, and what did you think about WandaVision so far?
Yeah, what's up? I'm Chris. I'm the younger brother of the Chiarulli twins, and yeah, I have music under the same name, under Chiarulli. I have one song out, an acoustic version. I used to play shows and stuff all around with Chris when he used to be in his bands, and we've been playing music together for a while. So it's not something I'm fully taking seriously. I would definitely like to do more music, but if you want to have a fun random song, they have a song called Low. You can check it out on Spotify and Apple Music and all that. As far as WandaVision goes, I'm easy to please. I'm a huge superhero bias. It's kind of hard for me to actually be let down by something that like Marvel or even like DC. I'm like go really easy on. But so I've actually really been enjoying it. I'm easy to entertain. I thought it's been really good. Obviously, we'll get into this episode and any differences in that. But
we're going to change that opinion real fast, but we're happy to have you here, man.
I was about to say, I'm like, I didn't realize that. I mean, I just was kind of indifferent because I missed this episode when I kind of broke my thank you, Snow, also in the Hudson Valley, for breaking my morning tradition of watching WandaVision before I go to work, and I completely missed it because I had to shovel snow, and I didn't realize I didn't even realize that I hadn't watched the episode until I actually went to work, so I had to watch the episode on my lunch break at work, but that's fine. It all worked out anyways, and honestly, I probably ended up solving it because I guess the fact that, like, I was so focused on, like, just getting it done kind of apparently allowed me to overcome a lot of the problem because apparently people hated this episode. So, I mean, we're going to get into that in our first section of the episode, that, of course, being the recap section. So this episode 7, entitled Breaking the Fourth Wall, directed once again by Matt Shackman and written by Cameron Squires, once again sees the sitcom shifting to the most recent and supposed final era of sitcom, that being the late 2000s, early aught sitcom. As Joe was so kindly to mention, the Modern Family Office kind of mockumentary style series where all of a sudden, in order to take up time, you'll just randomly cut to interviews of them just talking about themselves or their inner monologues. Wanda decides to have a day to herself, even though she's noticing that a lot of the stuff around her is randomly shape-changing, seemingly out of her control. Billy and Tommy, her kids' remote control video game controllers, are not working. So, of course, who comes in? Agnes, the neighbor, in order to, monitor everything, making sure that everything's still A-okay, and agrees to babysit the twins. Meanwhile, Vision wakes up in the field where he was left beforehand when he tried to break out of the shield in the last episode before Wanda expanded it in order to discover that the sword agents that were swallowed by the shield have now been transformed into a circus. However, he manages to find Darcy, who has been brainwashed to think that she's the escape artist, and releases her from the spell, and they manage to escape, and she kind of fills him in on all the plot holes that have kind of transpired between his death and the now, and they form an alliance. Meanwhile, outside of Westview, Monica and Jimmy meet up with the sword agents that are still loyal to her, and she obtains a vehicle that will allow her to get back across the barrier. While the vehicle is completely unsuccessful against Wanda's magic, Monica discovers that she is actually able to enter herself, and once she passes through the static wall, she seems to all of a sudden be demonstrating powers of some kind, and then when she finds Wanda and confronts her, there is almost a fight that breaks out until Agnes shows up and tells Monica to leave and takes Wanda to her house, to which Monica supposedly follows. That part was kind of left unclear, and of course, once inside the house, Wanda is looking for the boys in the basement and discovers a very strange lair in which Agnes finally, and once again, spoilers, if you guys haven't watched the episode, I'm kind of like just annoyed that I still have to say that, but whatever, spoilers, finally reveals herself as Agatha Harkness, longtime Marvel villain / anti-hero, and also a magic user. And, of course, we then shift into the real mastermind of the show, the Agatha all-along theme, in which it was revealed that she is behind all the seemingly unexplainable events that have happened in the show, such as Pietro showing up and the murdering of the dog. So, with all that being said, guys, we are certainly in the final stretch, without a doubt, the final 3 episodes of this show. So, starting first, of course, as always, with our guests. And, Matt, I hate to do this only because you have been on the show before, so I'm going to throw it to the Chiarulli twins.
Give it to
First,
them.
what did you guys think? You
Let's
guys
go
can you guys can
twins
decide.
first.
You guys can decide amongst yourselves who wants.
Yeah,
to go
let's go
first.
with the twin who's 2 years younger first, and then I'll go.
All right.
I'll go with the older one.
This one, I mean,
Hold on. What did you guys think of this most recent episode of WandaVision?
man, this most recent episode. I mean, like I said, I'm easy entertained. I was definitely entertained. I can't say like looking back and comparing it to all the other episodes that it was like it stood out or anything. I love seeing these characters in like that whole like sitcom thing. It's just like funny to me, like regardless of like script talent and all that. Like it's just really funny to see Vision doing the interview and then like breaking it. He's like, wait, why the heck am I doing this interview in the first place? Like this makes no sense. Like what am I doing here? So I mean, I was definitely entertained through it. Obviously, Agatha being revealed and the end like little song that they do is like had me laughing. It definitely was like a longer, more like drawn out episode. I definitely felt like there was a lot of like low states in it, but I think overall, I mean, like I was entertained. I don't think it compares to some of the other ones, but I don't think it deserves. I mean, I haven't really seen it be getting too much hate. I don't really check it, but I don't think it deserves to be like fully hated on. But I can definitely see it being like kind of like a disappointment, kind of like a letdown in comparison to some of the episodes before it.
Yeah, well, the hate's about to happen. Just wait for
Oh,
my
I was
turn.
about to say, just you wait.
know it is.
You
Yeah, I mean, we'll
clearly
see,
have not
man.
watched this show before to think that you're not getting a Marvel hate train coming in here. And an episode hosted by your namesake, Christian Ivanko, the TV nerd, the well-known Marvel hater. Come on. Joe, New York average Joe, the older of the twins, by about 2 years. What are your thoughts on this most recent episode of WandaVision?
Yeah, I mean, we watched it together, so we were both kind of experiencing the same thing. I kind of said it right at the end of the episode as we were, wrapping up and figuring out what, we were actually going to say on here and talking amongst ourselves about it. It was definitely slow in the beginning. It just, and I've heard you guys talk about it before a few times, like they're using these TV tropes in each episode to kind of fill that time in a way. The Wanda kind of losing her touch with the reality around her was kind of overdone in a way. Like we saw it happen for like 20 minutes out of the entire episode. I love how they had GameCube controllers. That was a nice shout out to like nostalgia for us. They had a GameCube controller that it turned into, then Uno, and it went backwards and all that good stuff. But I really enjoyed the Office / Modern Family vibe it had. I mean, even though it was slow and we kind of expected to be drawn out that way and needed to know a lot of that information. I was entertained through it, like Chris said, but it definitely felt a little slow and there was not much happening within it that we really needed to see. I love how Vision was, talking to himself and, had that moment of like, yeah, I really need to get out of here and get home. And he just decides to F it and fly away. But yeah, I think that whole Office vibe I really enjoyed. And then of course the last, 7 minutes, 8 minutes of the show was all where it was jam packed full of wait till next week because this is about to go down. And I really love the reveal of who it was at the end. I think there's a few times throughout, and maybe we'll get to talk about that later, where you could kind of see something's going on with Agnes that wasn't going on with a few of the other characters. We'll probably talk about that later. But overall, I did enjoy it. It was definitely not the best one of the bunch, but overall, I did enjoy it, and it's kind of setting up the tone for the final 3. I don't know how many, if you guys know how many episodes are left.
There's 2 more episodes left. This was the first of the final 3.
Gotcha.
There's
so
9
I know it's going to
episodes
pop off now. Who knows? Like, if you guys know, is there going to be a TV trope next week, or is it now we're into
unclear?
This Agatha.
Think about this.
Universe
People
now,
all week were saying these were going to be hour-long episodes, and that was clearly
I
wrong.
wanted to get into that.
The
But
internet can't predict anything.
Yeah,
so
I was about
at
to say
this point-
that I did want to bring that up because that weirdly enough that was the biggest point of fascination for me, which of course has nothing to do with the overall episode, which should tell you something. But all right, so Matt, your overall thoughts from this week's episode of WandaVision.
I think I got to bring the pain and I got to bring the truth. This episode sucked. It straight up sucked. It was filler and it wasn't good filler. It wasn't even like it was just stupid. I think this episode was stupidly written. Directing and set pieces and all that good stuff can take you so long, but I come down to say that writing is so important when it comes to movies and TV shows. To me personally, everything that they could just continue the dumb stuff within this episode. Monica getting her powers, Didn't really like that whole explanation. What was it, episode 5, 6? They were kind of talking about it, and they went full on. They went with that. Vision. I mean, we'll get into it, but this episode, I think I lost a couple brain cells just watching this episode. It was a stupid episode, and it wasn't like Mandalorian has some filler episodes, but at least like the
Some
gunslinger
filler episodes. How about every episode of that show?
I'm gonna say this: the gunslinger episode was more enjoyable than this because at least we had something to pick on. This was just straight boring. Nothing happened. And yeah, that's my take on.
Okay, that's where I'm gonna slightly disagree with you. I don't know if Disney's ever gonna put out anything as bad as that Gunslinger episode, but I'll digress for a minute. Chris, go. I can tell you've been waiting all 15 minutes to pop off. Go.
Yeah, I'm loving the mixed bag of opinions we have here because this was such a divisive episode, and my intention of having the Chiarulli Brothers on wasn't because of the specific episode. It's just something we've been meaning to do for quite some time, and the timing kind of just worked out. But just the fact that we have Matt, who had to bring the pain and the truth, and then Chris, who's easily entertained, and then Joe, who made some good points but kind of liked it. I like that. That's a mixed bag. So where I approach this from is I don't think I'm quite as harsh on it as Matt, which is probably crazy to hear me say, because notoriously I think Marvel sucks, and I think everything they do is just very basic and very appeasing of their audience, which is smart.
Don't make fun of Matt like that.
Know your audience, and so they certainly do, and that's why I think they make the billions. But what I didn't like about it was we're in the last 3 episodes. I mean, we had a decent sort of middle arc that set up a lot. We had the Quicksilver reveal, and we kind of got to see how Wanda was sort of losing her grip and what Rambeau was doing, and all these characters sort of working to a purpose. And now I feel like this week we should have tapped into that purpose, and we should have started to actually seen them start to do things that would peel apart the onion in a meaningful way. I'm kind of with Matt in regards to the filler argument that he brought up, because while I don't think this was fully filler, I also think it's not the best writing because it could have been way more interesting. I mean, this is it. This is a limited series, so keep that in mind as well. And we have 2 episodes left after this week, and the fact that the word filler even can come up in the largest property in the world right now, talking about what is going to be the start of the 3rd arc, that's just ridiculous. And so that's where all my arguments are going to come from tonight. While there was some good, I think it is very unacceptable that we even have to bring the word. We spoke about filler with AJ last week too. I mean, why is filler even coming up? We're talking about a company with the most resources in the entertainment industry that we've ever seen in history. So that's where I'm going to come at it from tonight. Dom, what do you think about this episode?
Too.
Exactly.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm going to say to that is, look, this episode demonstrated to me more than anything else that the creators of this show specifically were very much told to put Watchmen under a microscope, dissect the elements, not of the story that made it work, but of the structure of the series that made it work, and apply it to this. I am fully of the opinion that they filmed the extra couple of sitcom episodes in order to make sure that they grafted out every single segment of, the decades of sitcoms from the beginning of sitcom history to now. And even though it's probably not true, it definitely makes the most sense because this reminded me so much of an almost religious awe, which is the 7th episode of Watchmen, which had the twist reveal at the end that Angela's husband was actually, in fact, Dr. Manhattan at the end when she put the hammer to his head, and then you just saw the glowing blue, and you realize, oh shit, he is Dr. Manhattan. And I still want to give a shout out to my friend Dustin Mason for calling that shit out of nowhere without being a Watchmen fan at all, and just completely guessing that off the flip of the hat. I didn't want to spend too much time talking about DC in the Marvel episode, but it's inevitable at this point. You kind of can't talk about one without the other, and they're kind of stuck in a really, really bad and abusive relationship / marriage. What I thought about this episode, the answer is I don't really care. I'm like, we're almost done. We got 2 episodes left. I knew the twist was coming at the end because I think a Reddit thread spoiled it for me, but I didn't care. I just wanted it to happen. I'm like, all right, we're just going through the motions. We got to get this last train of sitcoms. I'm like, yeah, this is the last bit of sitcom kind of riffing that we got to do. We have, again, it's The Office, Modern Family, mockumentary style, and that's it. Unless they do next week, they do a community riff, which would absolutely be incredible, and that would make all my dreams come true, but they're not going to do that. So the one, I guess kind of the few positives I can take away aside from the twist ending at the end, which again was cool, even though I knew it was coming, I was still really happy when it did happen because I'm like, oh my God, finally. I will say that I think the one kind of moment that I was like, okay, that's kind of funny, is when Vision is sitting in the latest like kind of documentary chair, and then he's like, wait a minute, what am I doing? Why am I talking? Who even are you?
Yeah.
He just rips off the mic. And
That was
takes-
cool.
That was funny.
Comes off.
That was kind of funny.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny. But so with that being said, I'm going to leave it to you guys to mostly debate the episode, because this is going to fall into another category where it's like, yeah, the episode probably isn't that good and whatever. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. Like everything Disney does, I don't think they're capable of putting out something like really, truly, horrifically bad anymore, because everything is so tested and so put under a microscope and so like tested to the nth degree to make sure that it's perfectly suitable for the family-friendly audience. That again, I don't care. So the only thing that I wanted to talk about really was the fact that the internet kind of basically almost put a modicum into our heads thinking that these were going to be hour-long episodes, and it wasn't, not at all. So like, I just wanted to talk about that for a second real quick, because like, yeah, obviously the fact that primarily a bulk of the stuff that we're going to get going forward is going to be streaming, and obviously that, you know, it makes it just that much more accessible for people like us, and so therefore it makes it that much easier for like the Redditors to spread misinformation, which obviously is a key and crucial part of the internet age. So like, and only because the hour-long runtime is not the only thing that I saw. I saw one thing before episode 5 aired that said that episodes 5 and 6 were going to be aired simultaneously, and then that wasn't true, and I've been being fooled like nonstop by some of these like fan-made trailers that have come out for like some of the future properties. Like, don't get me wrong, the fan-made trailers have always been good, and I can always spot within like 3 seconds once I actually click on the video whether it's fan-made or not. But like, they've been getting like better, for lack of a better word, and so I don't know, like only because like that hour-long runtime thing was getting a decent amount of spread before this episode dropped. So like, does any of that like ring anything for you guys, or like talk to me? What are your thoughts on that?
No, that didn't affect me at all.
Right.
I mean, I don't take anything that happens on the internet seriously, let alone film Twitter. I mean, especially after this past week with just how even like the one section of Twitter that I thought could never get political got political. I'm over it all. I don't really trust anyone unless it comes from the horse's mouth itself. So it was an interesting idea. I wouldn't have been surprised by it, because I genuinely actually felt that, yes, while leading up to this episode, the start of the third act, it hadn't been that exciting. I also thought that, you know, they at least covered their bases well. They laid the groundwork of something that could have been a very awesome climactic sort of third act. So I was looking forward to it, and I wouldn't have been surprised if we went there. But I'm very, very trepidatious going into this last 2 episodes now, because goddamn, this week was such a letdown, knowing just writing and studying it in school and just doing this show for so long and just having eyes and ears and being a human who consumes content. We should have got way more than I thought we were given this week. So that's why I wasn't affected. Hour long, half hour long, it could have been effective either way, if kind of like what Matt was saying, if the writing was good and if the story was progressed forward in a way that kind of alluded to what we should have gotten. So
yeah, that's just the day and age that we live in there. I had a point that I was going to go for, and I've just completely forgot it. So,
I mean, what does everyone else think though about like
Yeah.
did the internet get in your head? Did it sort of taint any of your guys' opinions?
Well, I cover news on my Instagram page. I forgot to mention that. Basic Entertainment, you guys can go follow that. I cover news, and I broke down the news that they're going to have a 1 hour for each of these 3 episodes. And that supposedly Kevin Feige is the one who said that. Well, that turned out to be a lie. Like a day before, I found that was going to be a 38-minute episode, 34, whatever it was. And I was kind of let down, I'm not going to lie, because I'm putting a lot of pressure in these final 3 episodes. A lot of pressure. A lot of the stuff, a lot of the answers need to be, a lot of the questions need to be answered here, and they need to be satisfying for me to kind of be like, okay, this is what they were doing in episode 4. This is what they were doing in episode 5. This is what the plants there was planting, the seeds they were planting. Now we're going to see that plant grow up. And you know what I'm saying? Like, just all that setup, all this mystery box we talk about needs to come out and needs to be satisfying. But so far, it's, like I said back in episode 4, it's kind of predictable. It's kind of predictable. And I don't know if I'm putting too much pressure on it, because it's still Marvel at the end of the day. It just shows me that Marvel is they're not ready for those big boy type of storytellings. You know what I'm saying? They're not ready for that stuff to handle. But yeah.
The formula is
I
too
agree
strong,
with that.
and
It's too strong, but it
just
works.
it coddles them at this point, though.
Because-
I mean, I thought Phase 4 was going to be this phase of taking risks, introducing
Right.
new characters. We have Shang-Chi coming into play. We have Wandavision, which is something we've never had from Marvel before. Not only a first television show, a limited series where sort of the reality bending's being played with and toyed with, but it's also it's just been so basic so far that it's like I compare it to this show that I liked because I can enjoy that sort of CW schlocky nature. I mean, I have a soft spot for it, but there's a show that aired around 2014 on network television. It was one of the last network shows I watched called Wayward Pines. And basically, just so you guys know, Wayward Pines is humanity's destroyed and now the last humans are cryogenically frozen and they go in this small town and they're woken up and they're being heavily surveilled. And of course, it's like a WandaVision plot. But even that on network television with like I'd say a tiny percentage of the budget, 0.5% of the budget that this show had was more interesting than what we're getting. I can only forgive so much because of the IP that it's attached to, you know? And I think I'm at the end of the line with this week, to be honest. But someone else jump in.
I somewhat agree with Matt on a few of those points, but Christian, I think they're definitely taking chances. Like WandaVision is something, in my opinion, that I watch a decent amount of TV and Netflix and all this stuff. I think it's definitely a step in a different direction for Marvel in general. One, it's their first TV show in this universe, which is definitely a step outside of what they normally do with movies. But like just the format of the show, I think is really fun. And like, although yes, it is tropey, like obviously they're using different tropes in every episode. It's something that that I haven't seen before. So I really enjoy it. It's a nostalgia trip, which they're definitely trying to do. It's a Disney classic. But they definitely are taking these chances. It's definitely a really interesting way of going about it. The ads within the episode is just something that's like really, really cool. And it's something that they can tease and put little Easter eggs inside of. Like this episode was probably the biggest one yet in terms of what it kind of revealed about what's going on with, you know, Wanda and Nexus and even that has a lot of things within the comic books, that Nexus is actually this crazy thing within the comic books that I don't know too much about. So I don't want to go into that, but they're definitely taking chances. I really like what they're doing. It's just, and then to your point again, these last 3 episodes needed to be big. And this just like for 7 minutes of it to be what we really needed to know from it. And it wasn't even crazy enough to like get you crazy, crazy excited for the next 2. It's more like, okay, well now what's going to happen? Like it wasn't this crazy start to it where the beginning of the episode had that kind of reveal. And then it went into, okay, what's going to be kind of the plot line of these next 2? Because we still don't really know. Like we know maybe the twins are in trouble somehow. Now they got to find that. Vision's going to go to the house, not see anything. Spectrum, which is Monica's alter ego alias, what she's going to do, she's going to walk. What?
Most importantly.
Yeah. She's the cable provider for the entire Hex. It's actually this network deal that they created. It's branding. She sold out. But yeah, I think that was something that was pretty cool. I really liked the animation within that. Matt, to your point, you were saying that like you didn't really like how that went. I just liked how it looked. It was really cool seeing, you know, the flashback to Captain Marvel in a way with the audio. That was my awakening moment that was Monica from Captain Marvel. Like I didn't realize that before. I know it was in, Chris told me like episode 3 or 5, whenever that happened. That was my like realization that I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like that they're bringing in that character. I was definitely disappointed in the aerospace engineer. I feel like that's something that we'll probably talk about. Me and Chris were waiting there. And Chris, I want you to tell them the point that you made to me, because I thought it would have been brilliant.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's all those, because this is the Office episode, and there's all that speculation around Reed Richards being cast as John, whatever you say.
Krasinski. Yeah.
So I thought this would be
love
like
that.
cool
Imagine
him in to bring him into the universe.
In the Office episode, John Krasinski steps out.
That would have saved this entire series.
That would have been
cool.
fantastic.
I'm not gonna lie, because I didn't even put 2 and 2 together there, but that actually is really freaking cool. And I guess kind of the only contribution that I have to that is, again, with the Watchmen comparison, because like literally any kind of show, like there have been a couple shows that have seemed to be riffing on that, like Lovecraft Country in particular, but this one in particular just seems to be like really, really egregious with how it's mimicking the structure of it. And I guess, like, again, the key difference is that with the Dr. Manhattan reveal at the end of episode 7 of Watchmen, I was raring to go, and I'm like, oh my God, what is going to happen next? And then episode 8 was the masterpiece that it was. And even though the finale was kind of a little bit underwhelming compared to the last couple, it was just like, it was so good. And this episode, the twist happens. I knew it was coming. I've been waiting like 7 episodes for it to happen. And I'm like, okay, of course this is where they're going to end it, because this is what TV does.
To be her?
I knew it was going to be her. And I wasn't expecting. I knew it was going to be her. And especially to me, the minute that it was confirmed was in the episode where they introduced the outside world. And they were putting all the like Westview people up on the wall, And they were,
she wasn't.
and she wasn't there. I'm like, yeah, that confirms it. She's Agatha Harkness, and then Reddit
Too
kind of filled me in on
obvious.
the rest of it. And here's the thing here's the kind of the overall thing that I guess, for lack of a better word, it's a twofold thing. One is the sitcom nature of it, and kind of, again, the where the show chose to go, and two is the Marvelness of it, which is, one, with the sitcom nature of it, the idea of doing the riffs and homages to sitcoms week to week was kitschy, and it was fun, and it was cool. But I think now, and especially now that I'm guessing we're at the end of the rope and these last 2 episodes are just going to be nonstop, typical action-fueled Marvel stuff that we're used to, is that the problem is that, again, like a point that Chris brought up, the problem is they were just wearing the sitcom suits without actually, like, understanding the substance of what the sitcoms were and just coasting off the Marvelness of it. And this was probably the first episode where I really started to notice it, mostly because, like, kind of the mockumentary, and it might have just because, like, the mockumentary approach is kind of like the one that has the least effect on me, just as far as the sitcoms go. Like, the Malcolm in the Middle approach last week was kind of cute, because I was like, oh, okay, I didn't watch a lot of those shows growing up, but I have been inundated to death with the mockumentary style since The Office made it popular.
That's our generation.
And just as far as the Modern Family-ness of it go, like, real quick, did they ever, only because I know the Modern Family just recently, and did they ever explain the interview crew that was interviewing them, or no? They never explained that. Like, for anybody who actually watched Modern Family all the way through. They didn't? Okay, good. That's all I needed to know. I just needed to know that answer. And the other thing, which is the Marvelness of it. So I've been listening to The Watch recently, and Chris Ryan and Andy Greenwald have been breaking down this show week to week. And last week, well, technically this past week for episode 5, they were talking about the idea of, again, the fact that, yes, we know that Marvel has no stakes, but also the fact that the stories themselves are, aside from being, again, like, really cool impersonations of the comic books, which is again what the movies were did so well up to this point, is that they don't really care about being about anything. Like, they, like, at this point, that, like, now even more so than ever, all that they are concerned about is just being the comic book and setting up the next thing. And that's cool to a point, right? But that's also kind of the problem that I have with comic books in general, and just that mode of storytelling is it's kind of a similar problem that I have with TV, but TV doesn't always fall into this trope, is that they're designed to last forever. Therefore, they constantly have to reset these characters in order to once again regenerate the mystery. That's why necessarily I'm not faulting the movies as much as I did the source material with which it is based on, because that is what comic books are. Comic books are that by nature. To criticize the movies for doing that is to criticize the comic books. Now, the fact that the movies are not really trying to get away from that, that's a different discussion. But as far as that goes, that to me is the problem that I'm starting to notice with not only this show, but with kind of everything, especially since, again, Marvel is a money-churning machine, so that's what everyone is trying to go for. So I guess my next point.
Well, hold on, Dom, because I want to, like, sort of get your opinion on this. Yeah. So these 2 guys that we have on the show, it's great that they're on this episode. They're the reasons I got into comics.
I brought it up for a reason, this point.
We used to go to the Dragon's Den in our area. They just closed down, unfortunately, another casualty of, like, the COVID. But we used to go to our local comic shop. I had to shout them out, with you guys being on all that, fond memories. We used to go every Tuesday and pick up for like a year. Go every Tuesday and pick up issues. And what I learned comics do is, yes, while they do have to produce week in, week out, sometimes they're bi-weekly, but mostly it's every week, really. They still, when they hit an arc, they conclude it, but so you get a fulfillment. Say the 10 episode run, but it's really like, 800 episodes of, like, an Aquaman series that's been going on forever. But, like, if there's a 10 episode arc in there, you could read that arc individually and not get what the through line is into the next plot, because they at least make something fulfilling there when you complete that little 10 mini arc. Where the movies, and especially in this show, I don't think they're doing that. I think that's what Marvel's losing, is the comics know that they have to go for a long, long time. So yes, they build it up and then they break it down, and there is some fallout and there is some picking up of the pieces, but those 10 issues together, they feel complete, even though it's connected to another 50, 60, 70 issue run. So you can read them out of context, and that's one of the things I think the comics do so masterfully, all superhero comics, because you're not following the hero chronologically, you're following different chapters in his life or her life, and that's what I don't think the movies have been able to do as successfully, and I think we're kind of seeing the fallout of that now after the snap, the clap, the bing, whatever stupid name you guys want to call it. I refuse to call it the blip. That's why I offer so many alternatives every time I say
Far From Home forever for making that the official term for the snap.
What do you guys think about that point, though? Because I think Dom raised a really good point, but I will counter that as someone who has read a lot of comics, saying I think the comics at least wrap things up better and make it more fulfilling when you complete an arc, and they don't just string you along for the next one. There's something meaningful
Unlike
in
the
what you're
movies,
actually reading at that point in
comics
time.
actually have a sense of finality, which the movies are very much lacking because the movies are geared and media properties are constantly gearing you towards prepping for the next installment.
I mean, in a way, and I'll let Chris take most of the comic book talk because he reads them more than I do, but I'll just say quick, like, and I was even like looking up some stuff about like people talking about WandaVision right now, and it's like the finality that you're talking about in comics is in a way true in terms of the story arcs. Each one can be wrapped up within a series, a chronological order, whatever it is. But then Vision has 5 different forms. He's died 8 times. There's different, like they rewrite characters a billion times in different stories. So in that way, it's true. But I think you are correct in the way of saying like these stories are confined better and wrapped up better within the comic books in that way.
I just think it's more compelling, but I don't know. Chris or Matt, what do you guys think in regards to that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree.
Oh, you go for it.
I was saying I definitely agree with like comic books kind of being more of like a wrapped up, like tight kind of like story. You can kind of go, you can call it out by arcs instead of just being like, if I wanted to go read like a Spider-Man comic, like I'm not going to originally just be like, I have to do it chronologically and go with the first ever Spider-Man comic that came out. Like there's been hundreds of iterations and arcs that I can go. Like if someone were to ask me like, hey, I wanted to get into like blank superhero, like is there like a good arc I can recommend? And I can recommend them specific arcs instead of just being like, oh yeah, like you want to read Batman, like go read the first ever Batman and go read it through. Like you can just jump in at certain points. And I think that's why there's been so many like,
you don't need to read Detective Comic number 1.
Yeah. You can kind of jump in whenever you want. And like, you can read 8 comic books and be like, that was dope. Like I got the arc. This was all great. And the story is like wrapped up nicely.
But then also, don't you find that yeah, sorry, go ahead, man. I was going to say, don't you find that there also is like, even when you wrap that arc up though, you can continue on with it, but it also doesn't take away from what you just watched. Like the moment of completion you just achieved is still there. Although they do a good job of saying, hey, issue number 9 is coming out next week.
Yeah, you definitely get you definitely get like a cool like closure as you're reading it throughout, and like it's not like a super long endeavor that you have to go through. And yeah, it does like lead you really nicely into the next, which is something that I think, like as you were saying, like WandaVision isn't hitting as much. It definitely does feel like this is like a stepping off point. Like they're using this as specifically a transition into the next phase rather than this being its own complete story in itself that you would be able to recommend like an arc. It does kind of feel like this is like the handoff to the next, whatever like next chapter is going to be going on. So yeah, I mean, I feel that. Yeah, so far, and obviously we don't have the last 2 episodes, so I can't really say that.
But here's
there isn't that closure. But I do think, yeah.
No, you finish.
No, yeah, I was like,
but
we don't have the last 2 episodes. So.
Well, here's the problem with that is that I feel like with the exception of a few select things, I feel like with the exception of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies and Black Panther, that's every Marvel property. And even to the point, and again, that's fine. I like the Marvel movies. You know, they're perfectly enjoyable. That's one of those things that I enjoyed so much about watching the movies. And again, that's part of the reason why I loved Endgame so much, was seeing all those threads that they set up come to fruition perfectly, right? And the problem is that, though, and again, like this, it's people are going to watch it regardless because it's Marvel, so everything we say here is technically meaningless, but not throw a little damper in that parade, but it does, to me, significantly devalue the thing that I'm watching if I know, oh, yeah, this is going to be set up for the next one. Like, I'm not going to lie. To me, even though, and Chris knows this, I loved The Mandalorian Season 2. I very, very much enjoyed watching it week to week. But almost that entire season, and by default, the entire show was completely devalued when it felt like not even a week later, they announced 13 different spinoffs that are all coming from that. Because it's like, yeah, not only are you, A, just using this as a launching board, but B, I'm like, why do I even care about these characters? Because who knows if they're even going to be around in a season? You know, granted, again, how Lucasfilms handles that is significantly different than Marvel, and that's why I'm always willing to give Marvel the benefit of the doubt because again, up to this point, seem to be the only ones that have been able to make that work. But still, like, I guess maybe it's just because I'm like more of a cynical adult now than I was when I was growing up watching the Marvel movies, but that is like becoming more and more of a concern for me, especially as I watch more stuff, especially after coming off the fact that for the most part, I was done with Marvel. Like, Endgame was it for me. And then I was, again, just having to suffer through Far From Home. And now this, and for the most part, this is still something that I'm enjoying and was getting me psyched for the future of Marvel. But again, now that I know that, like, okay, now they're going to this is gonna go until they build to whatever multiverse ending threat will bring them back together in the next like 30 some odd movies and TV shows until they ultimately reset and keep going. And I'm like, no, like, again, to quote Tony Stark, part of the journey is the end. Like, this shit's gotta end at some point overall, you know?
Yeah, that's the problem comics have throughout the entirety of their existence. But I don't know. Matt, man, where's your head at with all this?
I get what you guys are talking about with comics, and like you get like mini arcs, mini events. Like you could just get a novel. It could be like Civil War, say, and you can just read that and then just end your day and be like, oh, that was good. But it's like comics, I feel like are forced to do that. You know what I'm saying? They're forced to have these mini arcs so they can kind of, I think these authors know that they got to have these arcs. So, because this is going to continue. Comics are always going to continue. They're making them. I mean, DC resets their universe, you know, every 2 seconds. So they're always going to continue. They're always going to keep on going. And they're going to have to force to make these mini arcs and these mini events. But Marvel, it doesn't seem like they won't do that because they're more limited with comics. Well, now it seems like they're giving like a new show every week with like Hawkeye, you know, all that stuff that's coming out this year. There's a lot of content from the MCU this year. So it seems like they're starting to become Marvel ever since I want to say maybe Avengers or maybe like around phase 2, they started to become more comic booky. You get what I'm saying? They're starting to become more like
the realism's kind of gone away, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's been gone since I want to say probably it's like somewhere in phase 1. Like you could tell the quality has dropped to more of this comic booky tone, this comic booky. They don't care, and honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you, I kind of appreciate it. I kind of appreciate the weirdness. I appreciate having, you know, movies like Guardians of the Galaxy that are weird, but I feel like it also comes down to the directors. Like James Gunn, you could watch the Guardians trilogy, and honestly, that could be it. Guardians 2, that's a good ending for the Guardians. You know what I'm saying? That's a good ending for a story of Oyandu and Star-Lord. And there's certain movies I could see that kind of just are like that, but a majority of these movies are a commercial for the next. And I feel like this show is doing that because not even like what's going to happen in episode 9. We already know that they're going to have a cliffhanger. Doctor Strange pops up, whatever. But even that, it's been like an episode, cliffhanger, here's Evan Peters. And yeah, it would be cool to see, you know, Reed Richards in this episode, but that still feels like more of kind of like, let's get excited again because we're going to do this. We're going to get
like
that excitement going.
They're relying too much on it is what.
Yeah, they're playing too much on it. And I feel like,
it's the whole retweet thing. It's like, who's going to be the special guest? They teased at it. Is it coming? I don't know, man. I think like if there was actually something of substance here, our conversation would have been curtailed to things that actually happen within the episode rather than like trying to talk about why we're getting this from this massive corporation. And I feel like we can keep going back and forth on that all day. So I do kind of have one last point that kind of I realized this episode, the whole sitcom thing, you know? For a while, I thought that was really creative, and while the filmmaking has always impressed me, and obviously the the mise en scène, their ability to just nail the setting and environment they're in, I think that veil has kind of been lifted as we've gotten to more modern times, and we're in these, especially with these last 2 episodes, sitcom styles that I'm very familiar with. I mean, I grew up watching Malcolm in the Middle, and I grew up obviously watching The Office, and I've seen a few episodes of Modern Family too. So now I really can see what my hunch was in those first few episodes is true, unfortunately, where the Marvelness of it is what they focused on more. And I don't know if that's because they couldn't nail the exact vibe of that week's sitcom, if because it was just too ambitious and they realized they were in over their heads, but it was already greenlit and they had to go on it. I don't know what happened, but especially this week with those talking head moments that The Office coined that term very famously, none of that really felt like homage. None of that felt like a Dwight or a Jim. And not saying it had to, but also there's other shows that have adopted that style and nailed that style in a completely different way, like What We Do in the Shadows or Parks and Rec. None of that felt like it fit within the mockumentary genre. It just felt different, and it didn't quite feel as polished as I thought it did back when we were with I Love Lucy, or back when we were with, the Brady Bunch, shows that I've seen, but I didn't religiously watch. What do you guys think about that? Am I crazy? Or because I feel like I really noticed that this week.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm going to say to that is kind of, again, just the MCU revealing their hand, showing, we're in third act time, so now the veil is becoming completely lifted. I thought it was cool last week, again, how they kind of seemed to merge the 90s and the 2000s overall with the whole Malcolm in the Middle thing. what's it called? Our guest last week very kindly pointed out the fact that they had a 90s and a 2000s movie on the movie playing on the kiosk in the movie theater in the background, and that also completely went over my head. But yeah, it's showing their hand that, like, yeah, this was a gimmick. It was a cool way to both pay homage to the sitcoms of old, while also having that be the narrative framework through which the show would be told. And again, I'm not changing my tune because I don't really care about it, but it's like, yeah, it's cool, it's kitschy seeing the homage to the sitcoms of old, but it kind of sucks that the storytelling isn't good enough to back it up, because again, the thing that made those sitcoms so lovable and enjoyable in the first place was the fact that they were well-told, entertaining stories, and the fact that that the creators involved had some understanding and knew that when they put this shit out week to week, everyone was watching because there wasn't anything else to watch or do. So they knew that they had to put their damnedest into every single one of these goddamn episodes. And now, in the age where we're inundated with content, and Marvel knows that they could take a shit on the sidewalk and everyone is going to be talking or tweeting and retweeting about it because
so
they seem
elegantly put.
Because they are the only, because they have become, now that Game of Thrones is out of there and Star Wars is kind of in this weird position, and DC still don't know what they're doing, literally, and are kind of like now marketing themselves off the fact that they don't know what they're doing. They are just honing in.
True.
They are just honing in on becoming the epicenter of whatever is left of monoculture. That big discussion at the end of Game of Thrones.
Only one who has your shit together?
I'm not done yet. Hang on.
Sorry. You can't cut. You can cut everyone else off.
No, but you've been doing it a lot more than me recently. All right.
Anyways,
so don't even.
Listen, finish
don't
up,
go
man.
there. But. What's it called? See, you just made me forget my point. There, screw you. Go.
I was just gonna say, does being the only one who has their shit together justify bad writing? I mean, yeah, Star Wars obviously doesn't know what the hell they're doing, and DC, like you said, is marketing off their BS. But
no, it doesn't, and that's what I'm getting to, is the fact that they are just at this point. Like before, there was at least some effort. Like and like when they were going all and building up to Endgame, they were like, okay, yes, this is what we've been building to. So at the very least, there was some effort, or for lack of a better word, put into it. But now that they know that they've got no competition, they're just coasting. They're completely coasting because, again, they know that it doesn't matter what they do because everyone's going to be watching and talking about it. Like, I don't know if it's completely, the machine has reached complete self-awareness, but if not, it's damn well close. Like, Feige knows that he can put out a subreddit or a tweet and it'll be the most tweeted thing on the internet. Like, imagine having that much, just take a second and imagine having that much power in your hands. I think the only position that comes quite close is being the president of the United States, but even still, that doesn't, even that's not comparable, though, to being the head of Marvel Studios in the year 2021.
Yeah.
I do agree with that. I think that also, like, I actually have a question for you guys. Now, are these last two episodes, can they change your tune on the show? If these last two episodes blow you out of the water and say that, like, they actually come in with, like, now that the one of the villains, if there's not more villains, has been revealed, and then whatever's happening outside the Hex or what's really going on inside the Hex ends up being this crazy multiverse event that brings in this X-Men version of Pietro, like, is there's this, like, some kind of cataclysm that's about to happen? Will this then kind of change your tune, and then in the next 2 weeks we're going to be like, wow, this show was actually freaking nuts? Like, or is it just now at the point where it's a little too late in the season to build it? Because like you said, like, I didn't watch Watchmen, but that episode 7 of Watchmen set it up to where you were super, super excited for that next week. I don't feel super, super excited about it. I am not very, like, yes, it was a cliffhanger, but not really, because all it did was set up, it revealed the villain, but now it's like, okay, what's the plan? What actually happens next? I think it's less, we know less about that. Because we know less about it, we're not as, I need to watch episode 8, like, right freaking now.
The only thing that I'll say to that point is, I'm going to watch it regardless because I have this podcast, but also I'm not hyperbolic. And as far as, like, kind of it changing my tune as far as the whole show goes, again, like, as far as my statements on the individual episodes, I never really let that factor in on my overall thoughts about the show, at least until it's finished. And then once it's finished, I kind of reach this happy medium between the two. But as far as that goes, just forget this show specifically. If we're talking about, like, other shows where I've, like, kind of been, like, hit or miss until, like, they hit a certain point, and then I'm like, oh, okay, now it's really reached its flow. Yeah, it's not the best, obviously, if we have 2 episodes left, and those turn out to be like gangbusters episodes. But I'm like, yeah, sure, if they turn out to be good, yeah. And only because I've seen it happen on this show before, where we've been like, oh, that 1 week, oh, that episode sucked, and then the next week, oh, that episode was awesome, you know. And I'm kind of just like, yeah, I'll just take it as it comes, and I'll wait until it's done in order to make my final opinion on the show overall. That's the only thing that I can really say to that.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who wears the artist hat and the critic hat, I think I try to be respectful of both of those different sides of myself, and I would want to be judged as I judge someone and give creators the benefit of the doubt. And if you guys have been with us week to week, my tunes changed quite a bit, and I think that's because, unlike a lot of these people who like review on YouTube that at least I see, I objectively take everything as it comes. I don't make a preconceived notion, you know. I go into each week essentially with blinders on and hope to be wowed, but if I'm not, I got to be honest. So yeah, pretty much the same sentiment as Dom, but I think it's the only thing you can do. I mean, Matt, dude, you review stuff on the reg as well. What's your take on that?
It is a kind of a letdown going into these last 2 episodes, but like I said, if it's gonna, these last 2 episodes are gonna feel a lot like MCU, right? And I hope they add like a new genre. Like, I know they're kind of going supernatural. If they could go on full supernatural with these last 2 episodes, I'll be down for it, right? But I don't want no action blockbuster that the MCU has been giving us for the last 10 years. You know, I already seen that. I want to see them play into that genre, the supernatural, because they kind of brought up the point that Agatha, you know, Mephisto, all that stuff, all these type of characters are kind of new to the MCU in a way. So I need a twist, though. I need a twist because I think I need a twist to be kind of satisfied, be like, oh crap, like a twist that no one predicted, right? So I could be like, okay, these last couple episodes were now I see why they were painting this picture.
And it shouldn't just be like the Mephisto reveal or something. Like
it should be
it shouldn't
bigger,
just be
like,
the Reed Richards is now here. Like what we're saying, it can't be just these cameos that happen. Like they're just relying on their property, but it has to be some like really, really intricate, like why Agatha is doing this. Is it really Wanda? Can she still be the villain in this scenario? Like, there's got to be something that's already within the show that happens that we're like, oh, because like Agatha, like you said, like we kind of saw this coming. Like
we saw it.
We knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
So they need to get something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say, like, one of the things that I think is still capturing, like, one of the things I'm so excited for and still hoping for in this is that besides the Infinity Gauntlet, this is like the first time in the MCU where you have someone who is reaching that like Omega level kind of like threat where like if she really can control it, and eventually Scarlet Witch is like the person who can just warp reality whenever it is, like I think that does then lead itself to crazier storytelling. Like you've already dabbled in it with the Infinity Stones, which I even felt was like a little tame. Like they never really, I mean, he snapped the world out, which I guess isn't like super tame, but yeah, this is like a possibility for them to then go into that more like that like top end of Marvel and like get these more crazy stories that aren't just like some random hometown thing. These are gonna be like galactic threats and like time traveling stuff, and you know it's giving them an opportunity, I think, to get to reach that next level with the next phase and to kind of like dabble in those like higher powered
I'll give you one point. That's a good point. I'll give you one point that can really make me be like, wow, this is actually good. If they go full on Scarlet Witch is a villain. Like I don't want it to be like Agatha. Yeah, she's like manipulating her.
Don't give me Game of Thrones, man. Don't give me Daenerys turn in one season.
Give me the Padawan killing the God. What am I? Star Wars Padawan, the Master.
Anakin?
Master, yeah.
Give me something like that.
Whatever
Give me something of the Padawan killing the Master. Maybe Wanda kills Agatha. You know, she is full on control, and she comes because I kind of like the light of seeing her as this kind of like she's like a villain, pretty much like a villain that they kind of
right now for sure.
5. Yeah, I really hope they could go that route. And now, even though that's still kind of predictable, I'll still find some kind of satisfaction with that.
Right. So, with that being said, unless anyone else has any final thoughts, I feel like all of this we're going to talk about a lot with the 4th section with the connections to the MCU and the greater overall converse. But before we get to that, we have to do our annual crowning of the MVP section. So, Joe and Chris, since you guys are new to this whole thing, Matt has been here before, so he knows how this works. Basically, for this section, you basically just pick any element of this particular episode that you think worked overall really well, and you basically crown out the MVP. It could be a character, it could be an actor, it could be a director, it could be the producer, anything. It could even be like the score or any one of the technical aspects for me. Like, I know Chris picked The Score by Ludwig Göransson when we were doing this on the Mandalorian recap. I picked some odd choices. And just to kick this off for this week, my MVP, it's not Agnes, but I'm going to give this MVP to third act reveals. Because even though, yes, they're trite, and yes, they're cliched, and yes, we've seen them done a million different times before, some good, some bad, some really bad. Shyamalan, Post Lady in the Water. But it's just, it's always enjoyable whenever I see it, and I always like seeing it because it always gives me a reason to keep watching the thing that I'm watching, and it always helps. It's always that thing that they throw in there to help trying to legitimize something that you thought you were enjoying watching, which again, I guess is kind of a little bit of a red flag when it shows that it's like, oh wow, they have to justify this kind of a gimmick of a third act twist in order to actually, justify that their stuff is good when really it isn't. But yeah, I'm giving it to the third act twist because I miss third act twists, and I really love the Dr. Manhattan reveal from the end of Watchmen. And even though we've been talking about this a lot, and even though this episode completely riffed it, it was still cool, and I think it's going to lead to something even cooler in episode 8 that we're going to talk about. So yeah, that's my MVP of the episode, that third act twist. Everything else in this episode, as far as I'm concerned, could just go away.
You guys are the real MVPs. I mean, shout out to, no, I'm just kidding, but you guys are awesome, and thank you for joining
Real
us.
heroes.
What I will say is I had more fun tonight in this discussion than I've had watching any episode of this show so far. Let that sink in.
Wow.
But I do gotta say, normally the commercials infuriate me because I really don't think that they capture the tone and enhance the story like everyone else does. But I love this commercial, man. This was such a great commercial. Like when she's standing up and they have that bed that's on the wall and she walks away. That was such a very interesting shot. Like I gotta say, man, that was a really well done commercial. I was all for it, and let that sink in that was my MVP. What does that say about the show? Yeah, Matt, you can take it away, man. What does that say about
you more than anything else?
Hey, I'm hard to please.
Yeah, my MVP is gonna be. Oh man, I really like Agnes' home. Like when that little kind of like when they're going down, that was a nice scene. Like it was a good scene where like the set, it kind of looked.
Very evocative of going down into one of the many chambers in Lost. Wouldn't you say, Chris?
It was awesome. I like that little the basement you're talking about.
Oh yeah.
It reminded me of
Shazam.
It reminded me of a movie I'm just blanking on. But it kind of has like that tone of like a gothic witch type, that type of era, which I really want them to go through with. I really want them to go through with that. So I'm going to give it to the set design. I'm going to give it to the set design for that, her house. But
nice.
Yeah.
Chiarulli Twins, what is your MVP?
I'll definitely give the MVP to that final song, the Agnes All Along tune. I think was super funny. Yeah, like I thought it was a really great way to. It like had that little like ending, the dramatic, because she takes mind control, and then it just jumps to like this, like ridiculous song that's like snappy and like as you're moving, it's like an upbeat song where she's like, "I've been the villain." Like I thought that was like a really fun ending to it, like all things considered, and yeah, I thought that was a nice touch. It had me laughing at the end, and
did you get Sabrina the Teenage Witch vibes off that?
Yeah, actually,
that was cool.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I think mine, one, like Ivanko, I love the commercial as an ad guy. I think that was one of the best parts of the episode for sure. I'm going to give it to me. The biggest thing that I saw that I loved was the Monica's transformation for going through the hex into, her then now superpowered Spectrum. I think just the visual, like not really like the storytelling of it, but how it looked and how it was, like the voices going on through the head and the different timelines that she was within in that one moment. It was her younger self, her older self, her WandaVision self, and then her current, like in her own, sword uniform. I just thought that was really, really well done. It had a lot of flashbacks to like the Captain Marvel voice lines and things like that. I just visually loved that scene. And that was my MVP of it because it's just the way it looked and how it went. I thought it was really, really interesting.
I'm sorry, I don't just every time somebody brings up Spectrum, that's all I'm gonna be able to think of is Chris's
Oh
no, Chris, you ruined it for me. I'm never gonna be able to take that. What happened to Photon? Why can't you just go with their old school name, Photon? What's wrong with that? It's way better. Come on, people. What are you doing? Spectrum.
They had a deal with Spectrum, man.
Spectrum,
they sold out.
Really?
It's
That's
product
the best you
placement,
can do. Come on.
Westview was powered by Spectrum.
Whatever. So that brings us
how
to
they
the
get the billions.
Oh my God. That brings us into the final section, which again, Joe is going to have to help me out with tremendously because this is his bread and butter right here. That is the connections to the greater MCU and the comic book lore that inspired it. So tonight, people, we got a big reveal at the end of this episode, and so as a result, it probably helps to know who is this character they introduced, especially because this is especially because, you know, just within the context of the MCU, this is a brand new character that's never been seen. So as we know, Agnes is their neighbor, portrayed by, in the last 7, however many episodes it's been now, by Catherine Hahn, was revealed to be none other than Agatha Harkness, who was introduced in a Fantastic Four comic. She was initially portrayed as the sinister teacher of Wanda, as well as having been around and one of the original witches from the Salem witch trials. However, her first appearance was in Fantastic Four number 94, and however, she survived and later became a significant figure, even protecting Franklin Richards, the son of Reed and Sue Richards, as his nanny, and also obviously mentoring Wanda. In the one issue where she was first introduced, she easily fended off the Frightful Four when they came to abduct Franklin and admitted that she was a witch, and she then aided them in their battle against Galactus. Her powers, again, obviously derives her powers from manipulation of the forces of magic. She has the ability to manipulate magical forces for a number of effects, including teleportation, energy protection, and the tapping of extra-dimensional energy by invoking entities or powers or objects of powers existing in dimensions tangential to Earth. So this was a really interesting point that, as far as with Agnes's powers go, with the fact that her bringing up specifically the idea of, oh, you didn't think you were the only magic user before in Westview, did you? I think the interesting thing of note here is the fact that this is, I think, the first time where they're not only referring obviously to her, but also to Wanda's powers as magic, because up until this point, and again, this is kind of like where I'm glad that they're tying it in with Doctor Strange. Up until this point, we hadn't really concerned any of the Infinity Stone madness with magic, per se. Even though Doctor Strange had officially introduced it and made it very clear, the MCU was still primarily sci-fi and, like, weird space energy. And, like, everything was, like, rooted in sci-fi. So even though, and so considering our knowledge that we knew the fact that, obviously, Wanda got her powers from the Mind Stone and Infinity Stone, very similar to how, obviously, Captain Marvel got her powers from the Tesseract. And now, obviously, as we're going to see, which we'll also talk about with the idea of Monica Rambeau getting her powers from the shield extension of Wanda, and basically, you know, is now Wanda because of her powers that she got through the Mind Stone, now capable of giving other people powers, i.e. creating the mutants, which we'll get to in a little bit. But so, this is the first time that they're actually explicitly referencing magic. And even though obviously we know that Wanda's powers originate from an Infinity Stone, Agatha Harkness has been around since the Salem witch trials, and that is the thing that is going to happen in the next 2 episodes of the show, because there were set photos that were revealed that showed her at something that looks similar to the Salem witch trials. So we know we're getting that at some point within these next 2 episodes, probably next episode. So my question is, why now all of a sudden for Wanda's magic? And does this have to do with the multiverse? Does this have to do with, like, again, just a creative decision, convenience sake? Obviously, again, just for making it more palatable for when Doctor Strange is the inevitable cameo that comes in like the last episode, potentially in order to help her ward off Agatha Harkness, and also potentially to uncover another fan theory, which is that Agatha herself, who was revealed to be controlling Wanda through her purple magic powers, also might be being controlled herself, because there was another Reddit theory that I saw down that kind of Reddit chain that I kind of fell down into, which is that Agatha might herself be being controlled by Mephisto or Nightmare or by any one of the other villains that is speculated to have pop up in this show. But because she's not as powerful as Wanda, because she didn't get her powers from an Infinity Stone, she may have been used as the bait to lure Wanda to Westview originally, which was and in order to give Mephisto something even greater that will finally allow him to break out of his interdimensional prison overall. So guys, actual fellow podcasters, actual comic book nerds, speculate, if you will.
I want to know what she's here for. I want to know why she needs Wanda. Does she need her, as you're saying, to shape a new reality for her? Like what? Like that's something that I think we kind of should have gotten this episode. And then the next 2 are how she gets it or how she doesn't get it, how Wanda deals with it, whatever it is. Because we kind of know that Sword, right? Sword either is doing some kind of Sentinels thing from X-Men, which I thought would be an amazing storyline with taking Vision and what he, like his vibranium and what he was allowed to do with the like all that stuff and create these Sentinels, which is from the X-Men universe. I thought that could be where they're going with this, which would be really, really interesting. I've seen a lot of speculation that his name's Hayward, right? I think you guys established that he's from an alternate universe. Like, sorry, Chris.
Chris's least favorite character in the entire Marvel universe.
I watched last week. Yeah, but like people are speculating that he's from a different universe. That's why he asked if Wanda had a like alias or superhero name, because in this version of the MCU, she's not called Scarlet Witch. She's never been called Scarlet Witch yet. It's just Wanda. So I've seen a lot of speculation on that, and then like I'm just hyped because maybe Pietro is real. Is he real? Is he the actual Pietro, or is he, like from the X-Men timeline that's dead that Agatha had brought back? Or like I'm just really interested in where I don't know about her as a character as much, but I'm just interested to see why she needs Wanda or is in this situation in the first place. And it could be really interesting as a reveal with, like Matt said earlier, maybe Mephisto or one of those other villains. But yeah, super excited about this magic stuff because I think that's somewhere that really needs to be explored. Doctor Strange did it really, really well. And I'm really excited to see. Yeah, I know you don't think that, but I think that universe needs to be explored more. And then into maybe this X-Men crossover and multiverse, cataclysmic event.
Yeah,
honestly.
No, go, Chris.
Yeah, I'll say honestly, I'm just glad that they are like, I don't know if it's retconning or whatever, but they're going back and they are calling Scarlet Witch's powers like magic, because one thing that always irked me about it was that it was like an experiment. Like they never like fully explained it. They just said like these are two kids who have been experimented on, and one has super speed and now one has like whatever Scarlet Witch, like these magical powers. So I'm just glad that they're actually like acknowledging it, because that was always something that like kind of irked me in it. So if they're going forward with that, like I'm just happy. It's because that's one thing less that was on my mind, where I was always like, yeah, like I don't really get it. It was the one thing kind of holding me back from like truly understanding her character and like really, really liking her character. Because I was always like, wait, like man, like that just doesn't like fit right with me. Like if they're just the blanket explanation of her power. So I'm glad they're kind of going more into it, and that if they will be calling it magic, if she's gonna like maybe learn more magic with Agatha or with Doctor Strange or with things coming in. So yeah, I think that's like a cool step going forward. Like I'm glad they're addressing it.
Man, wouldn't that be the most MCU thing ever if after she basically takes over a whole town and brainwashes them and basically takes away a year of their lives, that Doctor Strange pops in and is like, oh, you have magic powers? Come and learn magic from me. Totally.
Well, isn't that what's happening next? Is the next movie besides like Black Widow?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Multiverse of Madness.
You're proving my point.
X-Men.
Is that these characters have no stakes.
True.
No consequences.
Yeah, I see what you mean, man. I don't know. I mean, I think someone said earlier the whole maybe there's like a deep fake going on with Agnes, and really Mephisto might be pulling the strings behind the scenes. That sounds cool. That sounds interesting. That's at least like a modicum of depth and something I don't see happening right now that I would very much so welcome. So, hey, I look forward to that. Movie Files. Elliot, man, good to see you, dude.
Not only popping in the last second, but leaving us a comment. We are honored, dude.
Let's see what he says here. The Darkhold book and connections to Doctor Strange are lastly are the fans' theories affecting your thoughts on the show? Okay. To be honest, someone else could take this one first, because I kind of spoke a little earlier about like the whole hour-long episode speculation, and my sentiment holds true. Fan theories don't affect me. I find them interesting. I'll look them up really for things that I'm a little more engaged in, like Star Wars, or like just like sort of smaller shows that I watch, I suppose. But with Marvel, it's just there's so many possibilities that I kind of just welcome them, as opposed to like push them away, because who really knows? Multiverse of Madness, point in case, What do you guys think about?
I think any show that does this format of weekly, that's good, like on these platforms that aren't on TV, are always going to have these fan theories. Like you could ask Chris. I talked his ear off about Game of Thrones every week because I watch Nerdist on YouTube and all these videos on YouTube about like there's going to be more dragons. There's baby dragons. Who freaking knows what's going to happen next? There's going to be an army of them that show up out of nowhere. Like it's something that they're going to have to deal with, one, because they're the masters of Easter eggs in Marvel. They're always like trying to put things throughout everywhere. So everyone's going to take every name of a plan, like Cataract. Everyone's going to take everything that they see in the show. The numbers from the computer were compared to comic book titles and numbers from on Nerdist News I saw. So you're going to get that from everywhere. And one thing for me that me and Chris were even jumping out of our seats for was the reveal of who the aerospace engineer was going to be. And it turned out to be just a really nice looking truck. So we're just sitting there like waiting for John Krasinski to get out of the van and do some office type shit. I mean, stuff.
We're gonna have to dock your pay tonight.
My curse on the show right
That's
now.
a fine. That's a fine.
Said you can curse.
All right. But that is definitely something that
put your dollar in the shit jar
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I think that it's something that every episode is going to deal with. I know specifically me, it does affect it in a way like what you guys were saying with the hour. I thought it was going to be an hour. I pause it, but I don't take into account the 7 or 8 minute please stand by at the end of the episode. But yeah, I think it's definitely, it affects, my viewing. I don't know what you guys think, or if that's something that you're looking forward to and then disappointed in, like me with the Reed Richards thing.
Yeah, the only thing that I have to say to the fan theories is that, taking aside the ridiculous ones like this number is this humbug. I'm like, I don't care about any of that shit. Only thing I say is I'll watch the one video and I'm like, cool, these are probably like 9 out of 10 of these are going to be right. This basically just told me what's going to happen in the next episode. Cool. So now I don't actually have to worry about like being disappointed by the lame twist, and I can just watch it for what it is. It's great.
It does suck too that they're like always, for the most part, 10 times more interesting than what we ever end up getting. That sucks too.
100%. Like Mace Windu's alive, he's gonna be the one that saves Grogu, and we're like,
exactly, man.
Work. And then it's Luke, and you're like,
yeah, that's another reason why I kind of stay away
episode,
from them, because like if my expectations are already this battered and damaged, I don't want to I want to at least try to be as objective as possible. So I don't want to hear some awesome stuff that's not going to happen be told to me that might happen. It's just such a letdown, dude. I don't know, Matt or Chris, what do you guys think about this?
I definitely try to avoid them. I don't know whether it's because Joe kept telling me all of his Game of Thrones fan theories and that made me not like them. But I mean, it's just
me as a person.
They're definitely cool, but I think having that moment of when it does get revealed and then your brain kind of like tracks back all the different things in past episodes when you're like, oh my God, like being surprised is always good, right? It's kind of like why I don't like watching trailers anymore, because I feel like they give away half the half the plot in trailers. So like, yeah, I mean, I definitely don't go out of my way and do fan theories. I like to like obviously everyone, when you watch a show, you speculate, you kind of like have your own. So I mean, like if I see some spoiled for me, like on Twitter or something, or like some fan theories, I'll see it and I'll be like, that's cool. Like a lot of fan theories, like you said, like are really cool. So it kind of protects you from being disappointed in them, and it also lets you still be surprised. Like when they do happen, you weren't expecting it. So like I try to stay away from them. I don't let them usually like fully affect it, because there has definitely been some that I've seen and I was like, oh my God, like that'd be the coolest thing ever. Like I'm so hyped for the episode, and then like it never happens, and you're like, oh, okay, well, and you're just fully let down. I feel like that takes away from some of the show. I feel like that's one of the biggest downfalls with Game of Thrones. At least I don't know if it's for me, but for everybody,
among many other things with that show.
There was so many fan theories and so many like possibilities that people were floating around that like once you found the one that you liked the most, if it wasn't that one, you were immediately going to be disappointed, regardless of like whichever one it actually was. Right? Yeah.
Dude, I'm convinced he still is. I'm convinced.
Same. Yeah, that's a different podcast for a different day. Matt, what's your take on the fan theories, man?
I think the fans obviously love it. I mean, you can make like 5 videos a day just speculating what's going to happen in the next episode of Wandavision or whatever these movies. But I think the studios got to give us those theories kind of in a way. Sometimes we sound too smart for these studios. Sometimes we're just like, especially Wandavision, I feel like the show is trying to be so smart, but within the writing, it's just not clicking with like the premise of the show. So fan theories are cool, but sometimes we put too much. I want to say we believe in them too much, and then we get disappointed, and then you get something like a Last Jedi, where like a director completely like flips you off, saying no, your fan theories are not right. So in some way, it seems like these studios got to give us those theories in a way.
I feel that. Elliot asked one final question. He said, on this world, not having the existence of Infinity Stones are affecting the reality. So do you guys think that that's a possibility? Personally, I can't really speak to this too much. It's all a little fuzzy.
The only question that I have about that is which world is he referring? Is he referring to like the world within Westview, or like the other realities?
I think it's all of it. Yeah.
Well, only because like this world. I mean, obviously the Infinity Stones are gone. Either obviously this version having been destroyed by Thanos, or just returned to the past where they came from. But like, what's it called? Okay, I think I get it now, because these versions of the Infinity Stones have been destroyed.
Yeah, and this time around.
Because that's the thing. The Infinity Stones are still doing their damage, because even though they're gone, the effects of them still linger. Obviously, again, from everybody that recovered from the snap, but also the various superpowered individuals that are still left on the planet that were empowered by the stones. Obviously, Wandavision being one, Captain Marvel being another one. I think there were like 1 or 2 more that got their powers from the. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to tie the what's the thing that powers the Black Panthers in Wakanda. The
Vibranium.
No. The Lotus, whatever. The
the flower.
Yeah, it's
They
burn
the
them
Lotus.
down,
Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. That flower.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if that has some elements that come from the Infinity Stones. Like everything eventually ties back to the Infinity Stones and basically like their handling on reality. So the answer to that is they are still affecting things, even though they're not there anymore.
I mean,
within
the Westview, you have the Mind Stone with Vision. So the Mind Stone technically is still there, right? Is inside of Westview.
Yes.
That whole force field is Wanda, which is what stone? What power she got? Her power
she got from the Mind Stone too. No,
the Mind
Stone.
Stone.
The Mind Stone.
You could say that's a Mind Stone force field if you want to say. So it's still there. You know, honestly, I kind of wish the stones can just be gone already. You know what I'm saying? But they gotta
going to be. Are you kidding me? This is Marvel. They're going to milk that shit for as long as they possibly can.
It was the Infinity
Who are
Saga.
you kidding?
It's the Infinity Saga. That saga's over. We're trying to move on. But that might be something that we're saying. Like maybe the Reality Stone had some kind of tie to keeping all these multiverses apart. And now that those stones are gone, the one who truly has control over reality is possibly Wanda, having these powers of warping her own reality. And we've seen it with her expanding the hex. She's losing a little bit of that power now. So we kind of see maybe those limits, but maybe something that Agatha can do and to help that, or Doctor Strange or whatever happens now, might have her having control over reality in those ways to where now we're getting, the real Pietro from X-Men, and X-Men start leaking into the universe. And now it's this multiverse of madness that people are all over the place in mismatched places. So it definitely could be having effect, and that could be a pretty awesome storyline.
Yeah, the only thing really that what's it called the kind of the last bit that I had to add was the idea of kind of them doing the reverse House of M, where now rather than taking everyone's powers away, Wanda is now effectively creating mutants, and I think that obviously Monica is going to be the first major example of that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I don't even think it's the Ancient One laid it out for us in I think it was Endgame. Or she said, like, if the Infinity Stones aren't there, then that's when all the darkness and stuff has to start coming in. So I mean,
right.
Whether we've seen it get fully affected, like the world with the lack of the Reality Stones in it, but it's definitely coming because they even said they've set it up
right
so that if the stones aren't there anymore, that there is going to be massive changes and massive reveals.
If we remember from Endgame, there is still one Infinity Stone that was not put back, and that of course is going to be used to jumpstart its own Disney Plus show, which we'll see how that ties it up with the 2012 Tesseract and Loki, because remember that's still the one Infinity Stone that is out of place. So we're all gonna see how that ties in.
To be honest with you guys, I can't speak to that because so much stuff happens in this damn universe. I commend all of you guys for knowing the specifics of that, man. This shit flies way too fast and too loose to congrats to you guys for just having a lock on that, man. I mean, listen, I guess I can do that with Star Wars, but damn, dude, I guess I just don't care enough either. And WandaVision's not helping my case at all. So that's my say on this.
Yeah. And with that being said, I think we've covered everything we need to about this episode. So Chiarulli Twins, Matt, thank you once again for being on. Chiarulli Twins, thank you for finally coming on the show. Joe, again, for returning. Chris, thank you for finally gracing us with your presence overall. Guys, before we get out of here, where can they follow you online?
Let me say one thing though, real quick, because Dom, the reason I didn't tell you about this in advance was because I've been asking people to come on the show live lately. For my birthday, it happens to fall on a day that we podcast. I would love for you guys to come on and just join the birthday stream. We're just going to talk about whatever happens. Matt, you're invited as well. Just come on and just hang and groove and just see. Let's make something, man. Let's just go live and just hang out and chat. So that's March 3rd. Yeah. So that's why I wanted to test the energy tonight.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
March 3rd. Yeah, definitely. No, I get that. Definitely. And it's funny because I was going to reach out to you guys for that, but it also works out because I was kind of, again, I don't even know what we're going to talk about on that day. It's just going to be, Chris is turning 27 and it's going to be fucking insane. And
we can talk about my downfall.
I'm gonna sit there. I will probably high. I'm not gonna lie. I will probably have smoked a lot of my weed pen beforehand, and I'm just gonna be sitting there taking it all in. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm the most silent one on that entire podcast.
I don't think you can be silent. I don't think you can be silent.
You say that, but Chris has proof to show that he has seen it before. Chris has seen when I've been quiet before, very recently as of mine. So yeah, where can the good people find you online?
Go ahead, Matt.
So you guys can follow me at Basic Entertainment. That's Basic Entertainment on YouTube. I do, of course, do reviews, reactions, discussions. I do my WandaVision spoiler talk on Mondays with some other great YouTubers. Got to get Chris on one of those shows. It's a lot of fun. Got to get you guys on this show. And I have an Instagram account where I pretty much break down the news of everything kind of like blockbuster movies, Marvel, especially Marvel, DC. So that's Basic Entertainment on Instagram. And yeah, man, I appreciate Chris, appreciate Dom, appreciate the twins for, of course, being part of this show. And it's always a great time talking Marvel and having different point of views. I love seeing it because it's like a good mixture of like positive and negatives. You know, that's how life is. Balance of good and evil. So, yeah.
Yeah, it sometimes seems to be all it is. Yes, Luke, it is possible. I know it doesn't seem like it, but
if Rorschach makes an appearance for my birthday, 27 might not be that bad.
Dude, putting ideas in my head. That's all I gotta say. Putting ideas in my head overall. But yeah, what's it called? Chiarulli Brothers. Where can the good people find you online?
Yeah, so I do nothing online but angrily tweet about the Philadelphia Eagles state at the moment. But you can follow me on at NYAverageJoe on both Instagram and Twitter. So yeah, if you want to just, tweet me your random hot takes about the NFL or, coming up Justice League, Schneider Cut, I'm bet you guys will be covering that. Love to be back on for something like that. I think it's going to be incredible. You guys probably very much disagree.
Oh,
so that'll be a fun one.
Listen to the podcast in order to find out our thoughts on what the Snyder Cut is gonna be. And let me tell you, I'm dreading that movie more and more by the minute. I cannot.
More than my midterms.
The thing that I need you to understand right now, Joe, is that the thing that I am looking forward to the most is when the credits come up and it says directed by Zack Snyder, and I can be like, "Fuck you for wasting 4 hours of my life," and thank fucking God that's over with.
Why is it gonna change it 4 hours?
4 fucking. And the
it's gonna be incredible.
I don't even think they're bringing in the elements of Justice League 2 and 3, which were already going to be better than that first Justice League. They're just going to take the shit that we saw in that boring ass generic movie 3 years ago and make that shit 4 hours long. Fuck that is all that I have to say about that.
It's gonna be late, and I really hope I get to be on that show to prove you wrong. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me, Matt. It was nice meeting you, man.
And you guys can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Talkin TV. And as always, make sure you leave the comment. Leave the comment. Click the like button. Click the subscribe button. Click the bell next to the subscribe button. Do your homework. Leave the stuff in the comments for us to read. That way we have suggestions. You guys should know all of this by now. Chris, where can the good people find you?
They can find me at Chris Chiarulli on pretty much any platform. I barely use them, but if you really want to see something I do, again, it's Spotify, just Chiarulli. And I got one song you can vibe out to. I hope you like it.
It's a great track, though. You guys got to go listen to it because you'll be like, damn, dude, this kid can sing. And yeah, everyone who I show says that. So I want them to have that reaction because I think it's warranted.
And oh, God, Luke, you're one
True,
of them.
Luke, true.
Luke, you're one of them. Oh, that makes me so sad, depressed. Christian, where can the good people find you?
Yeah, you guys can find me anywhere that matters at Christian Ivanko. This was awesome, guys. Thank you so much for coming on and hanging tonight. This was an absolute blast. Can't wait for the birthday stream now. It's going to be, it's going to be, if this was off the rails.
If this is just a taste, this is good. That shit is going to be insane.
I'm working on new music. I'm, working on myself and working on this show. So thank you guys for supporting everything I do and just being great friends and great chat, great community that we've been growing here. We're almost at 270 subscribers. At the beginning of this past month, we had like 200, like something. So like 210. So yeah, you guys humble me beyond belief. And I'm sure Dom feels the same way about
I'm
that.
never
but,
humble, so I mean, I never have that problem. So
Okay, you humble me beyond belief, and
oh, well,
Dom.
that's good. Dom, hey,
You
look,
inflate his ego. There
YouTube
you
didn't
go.
work. YouTube didn't work on me back in the day. It probably still isn't going to work. But I'm still happy to have all you guys around because it makes my existence feel validated. But yeah, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Movie Nerd Reviews. I do nothing but except this podcast now. Literally nothing. This is all that my life is comprised of now. And I think it's safe to say that from all of us here, from Chris, both of them, Joe, Matt, myself, 12 scenes in a short film. Watch more fucking movies. We'll be back next week for the final 2 episodes, and hopefully there's more to talk about than this episode. We'll see you guys.